Hi, I'm John and welcome to Stammer Run. Now today I wanted to go over the importance of running shoes to me, my connection with shoes, why I review shoes in the way that I do, and why I'm so passionate and why they're so important to so many people. Let's get to it. And now my connection with shoes, and I just think why I review the shoes in the way that I do. I think maybe sometimes I feel like maybe I come across like I maybe try to be different from the crowd, and the reviews are there in which I do that are there to maybe stand out, but they're really not. And I'm going to explain today some of the reasons why I review the shoes in the way that I do. So I didn't start to run until the pandemic happened. So, the gym's closed and, I needed to find a new hobby. As I say, I've always been into sport. I've always run whilst playing sport. I run a bit in school and I was pretty good. Now, one of the things that the pandemic taught me was, things like, you can't take things for granted. And, more than ever, it was really important for your mental health, particularly with the horrible things that happen. So one of the ways for me to, be able to release a lot of that stress and the strain and the worry was to be able to run. So I didn't know anything about shoes, and I had to learn the hard way with shoes and, kind of buy a load of shoes and kind of learn all about those shoes. So what have I learned within that time? I think it's really important to stress that, you work hard for your money, and, you go to work and, you may have other bills and you have commitments. So I think when you then take that money that you've worked hard for and you invest that, because even though technically a running shoe is an expense, you still invest, and that investment is investment in time, time to train, when you could be maybe spending time with your family, time which you put aside to train for stuff. Even if you're not training for something, you still put on your shoes and you still have that time and investment in that shoe. And not only time of investment and cash, but time of emotion, because when you run, it's hard work. You have amazing days, you have the bad days. You run in shoes when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's pouring down with rain, and you get out there, you run. So it's just that investment, and you do develop an emotional connection with those shoes, because they go through everything with you. They go through the hard times, the bad times, and I think it's really important that you find the right pair. When people then choose a brand of shoe, I believe typically people go to a brand which they trust, and they go to a brand of shoes whereby they've had a pair of shoes, and some people buy the same pair of shoes over and over again. They have this affinity with the brand. So this is probably part of the first reason why I review and hold accountable the shoes that I do and brands, is because when people choose your brand, they're giving you that commitment. They're giving you that commitment. They're giving you their money that they've worked hard for, and they see you as a brand which they trust, and therefore I believe the brand has a responsibility to give a product that is always quality, always offers something that the person needs and wants, and the product basically functions as that person expects. So with that in mind, when I review shoes, and particularly at price points, and I think that price is not always an indicator of how good shoes are, but I look at the value not only in terms of the monetary side, but somebody has to earn that money, and they get taxed upon that money, and they've chosen to use that cash that they've earned to go out and buy that shoe. Now I need to look at, is that shoe value? Does that shoe offer them what I think is right for that price point, for the hard work that they've put into earning that cash to buy that shoe. So my passion for these shoes now comes from when I review a shoe for everybody is to be as honest as I think. Do I always get things right? Probably no, because a shoe that I may find not value for the money and maybe not the best shoe. Again, you have your connection with that shoe, and I'm not going to devalue that connection to that shoe. There's some shoes out there that I'm maybe not the biggest fan of those shoes, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a connection to those shoes. And what I do like is that, I like the comments back to tell me that I'm wrong, because that's a perfectly legitimate response to something that you feel passionate about. And actually, this is where, brands should actually be aware of this. I'm sure they are, whereby you're staunchly protecting your shoes because you've run your really fast paces in those shoes. You've done so many different things in those shoes, and even if 99% of people don't think that shoe is great, you can love that one shoe. And that's the whole point of this, is to give a subjective opinion. I don't get sent shoes. I've been sent one shoe and I was allowed to be honest about that shoe. And, luckily for me, that shoe was fantastic. So this is why I will try always to buy my own shoes, because I want to be as subjective as possible and give you the most honest view without feeling like I'm obligated to say good things. So I need to give you an insight and give you my connection with shoes. I'd be really interested to understand your connection with shoes and give you an overview as to why I think about shoes in the way that I do and my connection with the shoes. So this is not necessarily going to be about stats of the shoes. This is the shoe and where my connection is to that shoe. So the first shoe I'm going to talk about is this Iso Ride 2, and this is the first running shoe that I ever bought in terms of having a hobby to be able to run. This is the first shoe that I run a sub 40 10k in. This is the first shoe that really kind of sparked everything off. This was the first shoe whereby I looked at reviews of the shoe and then started to get into the reviews of shoes and really take into account what people said about the shoes, and kind of really then started to geek out on the shoe. And this was the shoe that I picked. This was the shoe to start it all. And what I loved about this shoe was I loved the plushness, I loved the comfort in this shoe. So Saucony did an amazing job on this shoe for me. Maybe some people again don't necessarily like this shoe, but for me, this was the first Saucony shoe that I bought. It's the first Saucony, my introduction to the brand, and I absolutely loved this shoe. We did so many miles in this shoe. Understanding to be able to run, understanding about gaits and foot strikes, and how paces even, really starting to get to understand the paces. And this shoe has held up really, really well. I had this shoe for over 4 and a bit years, and this shoe still holds up extremely well. It's quite clean for its age, and this was such an important shoe for me, and to this day I absolutely love this shoe. Next shoe for me is from Nike, and it's the Alphafly. So the reason my connection to this shoe is not necessarily for what you may think, yes, this is a fast shoe. Yes, I think this is probably joint or up there as the best shoe of all time. This shoe for me is a poignant shoe because this is the first shoe that I ran in a half marathon, and this is a shoe that is synonymous with me for my granddad passing away. So, and I was training in this shoe, and then 2 months after that, my granddad passed away, and it really impacted me, really impacts me to this day, to be honest with you. And, you know, this shoe kind of got me through that time. It helped me to be able to get through to train. And the funeral was the Friday before the race, and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to race. So we had the wake, and this was on the Friday, and I kind of had to go to Wales. And you know, I didn't know if I was going to race, you know, as drinks flow and that kind of stuff, you know, so I probably wasn't feeling my best, and I probably shouldn't have run the Chelmsford half marathon. And thanks to this shoe, I was able to run that. You know, I achieved a 1:19 in that as my very first one. And, you know, this shoe just kind of helped me, made me think about him on the day, and was just, you know, was just a really comfort to know that, you know, I sort of trained in these shoes. I kind of had these shoes, and ever since then, you know, I felt a strong affinity to these shoes, because it reminds me every time I see them, every time I put them on, that I ran that race for him. And yeah, these are a special shoe to me. The Adidas Adizero Adios Pro number 2. So this was my lockdown shoe, and pandemic happened, and, you know, during the May time where things started to ease up again, and, you know, I wanted to get a pair of shoes that, you know, I wanted to really start to train hard in. And, you know, I absolutely saw these shoes and was mesmerized by the shoe. You know, I loved the colorway of the shoe. This is the original pair that I bought. You know, I loved the version 1. You know, I didn't get the version 1. I didn't have an opportunity to try that shoe, but I saw this shoe, and I saw everything about it, you know, from the rods to the plate, just to everything that it looked. The fact that it has these exposed rods, and I just loved the look of the shoe. Now then, when I got the shoe in hand, you know, this was an absolute, just an amazing shoe in hand. I still love the shoe to this day. This shoe, the reason why this shoe is so important to me, not only was it the lockdown shoe, I loved running in the shoe. I love everything about this shoe. Adidas with this shoe, I genuinely, they come up with, this is an amazing shoe, and I generally will urge you, if you to pick up the number 2, pick it up. I've not tried the number 3 just because these were so good. I just didn't feel the need to get the number 3. Now again, I've heard that that's really, really good, but this number 2 for me, affinity that I have, I broke my 5k PB in these. Did a 16:005, and because this shoe is so good from the upper, this Cellar Mesh upper is just so good, and to this day, hands down, I still personally think that this is the best upper on any shoe. Even to this day, it does get run close by another shoe, but this for me is up there. This is still up there. The midsole on this for me is perfect. That combination of a snappy ride, you know, it's comfortable enough, but it's snappy. The grip on this with the rubber on the Continental, I think is fantastic. I just think it's brilliant. You know, I love the combination of the rods. I think they absolutely nailed it with these rods on this shoe, and just the overall experience in this shoe was absolutely phenomenal. Why this shoe is important is because I judge as a standard, to set a standard of a shoe. This is what I use. This is my yardstick. This is my standard to which by I hold every other shoe up against. And if you can match up against this shoe and beat this shoe, then you're going to be an amazing shoe. So this is the shoe whereby I judge other shoes by this. This Pro 2 is the yardstick for me. I think this is a really important shoe for me, along with some of the other shoes, but for me this is a really important shoe, and what I hold and judge other shoes against. We have this HOKA Rocket X2. Now this is a kind of recent shoe for me, and I was blown away by HOKA, blown away by how good this HOKA is. And I'm not overplaying it. I bought this shoe myself. You know, I paid over £200 for this shoe. And when I talk about value, and I talk about, you know, cost is not, the price of a shoe doesn't necessarily represent the quality of a shoe, doesn't necessarily represent how long a shoe will last. Let me explain to you why this £200 is well spent. So again, I think this is still around for about £250. Let me tell you why the value of the shoe is immense. Compared to some of the other shoes that are out now and some of the other shoes now, this kind of looks like a simple shoe, but that's what makes this shoe so amazing. This foam in here, this Piba HOKA foam, is amazing. It is absolutely, for me, it is up there with some of the best foams up there. This is the foam on this HOKA Rocket X2. This Piba based foam is up there with Light Strike Pro, is up there with the ZoomX foam. The energy return, the comfort in this foam, it feels soft in the hand, but it's not too soft. And the implementation of this HOKA carbon plate in here, I think this carbon plate is absolutely brilliant. And I just think the combination of that foam with this plate is immense. I spoke about an upper that can maybe match the Adizero Pro 2, and this is it. This upper on this shoe is absolutely phenomenal. This is a lightweight upper, even though this is a lightweight race shoe, carbon plated shoe. The heel count, I think, in this shoe is brilliant. The way the tongue sits on top of your foot is immense. And overall, this is just a fantastic shoe. Now, why do I have a connection to the shoe? So I bought the shoe and I did a Outtro in the shoe, 100k. Probably not the right shoe to pick for that event. So I did the event for Action for Children, which is really close to my heart. And I trained in this shoe and we actually run that event in this shoe. Hills, mud, trails, you know, I had big stones in the shoe. This shoe has been absolutely hammered and battered and peppered with big rocks, stones. You know, this wasn't a road, this was fields, mountains, hills, pavements, mud, everything you could possibly think of. This shoe has been through that, and this shoe come across this unscathed. You wouldn't even think that the shoe has been through what it has. The other shoe that I have has a little hole in here, but that's because it was basically speared by some wood. And I recently broke my 10k PB in this to 35, 20, 24. You know, I've done over 200 miles in this shoe and it still holds up. This midsole is fantastic. The initial worry I did have about this HOKA shoe was, you know, was it going to last? And it's lasted and some. So, you know, this is 200 miles in this shoe. I think this could go for another 200 to 300 miles easily in this shoe. It's held up well. It's done an ultra marathon and it still feels amazing to this day. So me and this shoe have been through a lot. That ultra marathon was long, it was hard, it was difficult. You know, we got through that race. You know, it was an amazing day. You know, I met some amazing people, and I think that for me is probably one of the most important things about the shoe. This allowed me to meet this guy called Tom, who was an amazing Tom, and we shared an experience that I've never shared with anybody else, and it's all thanks to the shoe. And yeah, this is a top class amazing shoe and worth every single penny. For some honourable mentions, the first shoe that I wanted to talk about was this Atreyu the Artist. Atreyu, what I absolutely love, I love the ethos about this shoe, how by, you know, this is geared at, you know, people as matter your speed. You know, this is a true runner's shoe. Now this is their attempt at a super shoe. You know, they've tried to keep the price down, and I think Atreyu here have come up with not only this is a slim down shoe, but they've tried to keep the price down, but they haven't. The compromise for the price of the shoe, I think this was around £130, and it's very difficult to get over here in England, which I bought these second hand, so you can't really pick them up. But I love the ethos of the company. I love what they try to do with this shoe. You know, they've obviously now expanded. This is one of the original runs of the shoe, and this is just I just love everything about this shoe. This midsole is absolutely fantastic. You know, there's a carbon plate in here as well, and for the price and how these shoes will last, you know, I just think that it's a shame in England, Wales, you know, that these shoes are really hard to pick up, because I just think that as a brand, I think they are amazing. I think the owner and what he's tried to do with these is phenomenal, and you know, I just absolutely adore and appreciate this shoe. This Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro, I don't think this shoe gets enough love. I think this upper is not the best, but it's a functional upper. You know, it's not the worst upper out there. There are some things that it can probably do to improve, but as a first stab, I think it's great. Wave plate and the way that they want you to run in the shoe, even though it does look a bit funky, the stack height is quite high. It's coming to that 50mm, but this shoe is not this is a good example of a shoe whereby it may look like it's just trying to do something for the sake of it, but it really isn't. You know, I absolutely love the wave plate in this shoe. The reason why this shoe is important to me is because I run my fastest half in these. I broke my 10k just before I did, and I did a 35:48 in these, and that was on the kind of half marathon. And you know, this is a good example whereby a shoe company is trying to do something different in the space, but it absolutely worked. And you know, this was a fun shoe. I absolutely loved the stack height and just the funness of the shoe, and it's a really good functional super shoe. The next mention for me is this Mount to Coast P1. Now, this shoe was sent to me by Mount to Coast, but what I loved about that was, you know, they let me be honest about the shoe and create the content that I wanted about the shoe. And you know, in terms of the respect that they allowed me, one of the key things for me on this shoe is that this is from a company that's new. You know, they're in that space again. They're trying to innovate. You know, they're looking at the purposes of the shoe. You know, they do an S1 as well. They do an R1. You know, that's going to last you like 1,000k. That's aimed at ultra marathon shoes. And this P1, you know, is aimed at stability. You know, if you have flat feet, you know, there's a lot of tech in this shoe. There's wing plates. There's all, you know, even though it's not a carbon plated shoe, you know, this shoe has a means to an end. And you know, I just absolutely loved this shoe. I love this shoe to this day. You know, this is a perfect example of a shoe company that are doing things right. Mount to Coast, you know, this P1 is I can't even express to you enough how good the shoe actually is. For a stability plush shoe, they have a midsole it's PEBA based, but it's actually lighter. I think 50% lighter than EVA, but also actually lasts 40% longer. So normally what that would mean for me is that, you know, this might feel a bit of a kind of like a dead shoe. And what I mean by that is there's nothing happening in that shoe. This shoe could be further from the truth. Not only can it do longer, slow miles, you feel really comfortable, you get into the shoe, you almost forget that it's on foot, but it can also do really fast paces. And for me, this is a performance stability shoe without that carbon plate. If you don't need a carbon plate, you won't find it in the shoe. This is a stability shoe. I don't need stability shoes, but this is a stability performance fast shoe, and I think that they've done an amazing job. This is such a well-made precision shoe by people that really care about their shoes. And again, I've run probably close to like 100 miles in the shoe, and you know, it is just I just think this is such a good shoe and such a good example of you have these companies who are trying to do something else. You know, they're trying to do different in space, and this shoe totally works. I realised my passion and my connection with shoes, and that's why I review the shoes in the way that I do, is for you and for me, because you know, I want to buy a pair of shoes that are going to do something and, you know, offer you that experience that you've worked so hard to achieve. So on this, I'd love you to comment on your favourite shoes. You know, they don't have to be shoes of today. They could be shoes that you train. I really love to hear from runners, you know, who've run for a long time, you know, who perhaps don't run now. I'd love to understand is your experiences now. So what you think of current shoes, prices of shoes, do they offer the value for money? What are your favourite brands of shoes? I'd really love to hear your experiences. So on that note, please don't forget to like, favourite and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And I will see you on the next one. Take care.